Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Business 670, Chapter 4 discussion. Please give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, again, this is Chapter 4. What we hope to talk about today in this particular chapter is going to deal with looking at how can an enterprise functional level strategies improve its efficiency, its quality, its innovation in a way to support its customers and to ensure that the customers' needs and demands are being met. And how do we go about doing that? It's really through functional level strategies, and what these level strategies really are and what they're aimed at doing is improving the efficiency and the effectiveness of what that company does each and every day as they go about trying to attain superior efficiency, its quality through innovation as well as customer responsiveness, as we see here. It is really important to keep in mind that these relationships between these functional strategies truly are their distinctive competencies. And in those distinctive competencies, it really goes about how it shapes the functional level strategies that we see here in such a way that is really building upon the resources and capabilities of that organizations as it goes about developing and enhancing those distinctive competencies. And these distinctive competencies really is what that company does each and every day as they go about, again, trying to lower their cost structure, going about creating more value than their rivals, which hopefully will lead to their competitive advantage, also improving their profitability and their profit growth. And a way a company will do that really is through the transforming of those inputs, maybe labor, land, its capital, its technological know-how, and taking that and turning it into tangible outputs. And those outputs may be goods or services that is offered by that company. And one of the easiest ways in order to measure that efficiency is the quantity of the inputs it takes to produce a given output, or that is, the efficiency equals outputs over inputs. And this is a measure that a company looks at to determine how productive and efficient that they are, again, by lowering costs than its rivals. And if they can lower their costs and offer a much better product, then hopefully that will lead to more sales, which leads to profit growth and more profitability. One way that a company may be doing that would be through economies of scale. And this is a slide that really goes into some of that discussion that we talked about. Just gives you a graphical representation about how a company can use its distinctive competencies, that it's going to be looking at hopefully doing one of two things. That is going to be through offering products through differentiation or through lower cost, which is going to create value for the customers as well as the organization, which leads to superior profitability. A way that they're going to be doing that is going to be through economies of scales. And economies of scales is just that. How do we go about reducing our per unit cost if we have a large scale output? And it really is about one of the things you want to look at certainly is how do we go about spreading the fixed cost. And we know that the fixed cost is going to be incurred to produce a product regardless of the level of output. Maybe that it's going to cost for machinery, setting up that machinery, or individual production runs, whether that cost is going to remain the same, whether we produce 100 units or 1,000,000 units. The fixed cost will remain the same. So we want to try our best to lower those fixed costs, and we can do that through multiple ways, certainly through efficiency, utilization of technology, division of labor, or even using specialization. Specialization certainly has some favorable impact on productivity, because as you can attest, that the more you do something, the easier it becomes, the more efficient that you become at doing that. We become very skilled the more we do it as we perform a particular task. And that's good to a point. However, if we become overly specialized and that specialization decides to take its skill set somewhere else, then what will you do? Well, one of the things about this economies of scale is that if we can lower the cost per unit through economies of scale, then our per unit cost hopefully will, as we see here in figure 4.2 on page 120, that our fixed cost will begin to decline over a period of time based on the number of outputs that we are producing, if we can use economies of scale and increase our production. However, there may come a point where we will encounter diseconomies of scale, which we have exhausted or have maxed out on our specialization or our innovation or technology, or we have increased bureaucratic cost, or our production runs are not as efficient as they used to be. And as a result of that, we actually lose that economy advantage. And one of the things that we must do as managers and leaders of organizations is we got to understand and know the extent of the economies of scales and when these diseconomies may occur, and what strategies are we going to be implementing to help us overcome those type of diseconomies of scale. So all of that is important as well. Let me get my head on here. Okay, there you go. One of the best ways we can do that, again, is through this thing called experience curves or learning effects, which could be directly correlated to cost savings, because by learning we're able to do more. As labor productivity increases over time and unit costs decrease, as we as individuals, workers, become more efficient in the way that we go about performing our tasks. And managers too become more efficient about how they can go out and actually run the operations. And these learning effects tend to be more significant when the technological complex task is repeated, because there's more to learn. And in terms of the unit cost of a company, economies of scale imply that as we move along that curve, that our per unit cost will improve. And then this realization of the learning effects really is a downward shift in the entire curve, as both labor and management become more efficient over time in performing those tasks from day to day. And again, this is an example of that experience curve, that as we move from A to B, we're gaining that experience, and our unit cost will degrade or decline over time, which is what you want. But no matter how complex the task is, these learning effects typically will diminish over time. And as you can imagine, that as we're learning, as we're gaining efficiencies, so is the competition. So just because we may be enjoying this decline in per unit cost certainly does not mean that we need to stay there per se. And part of this experience curve, if I can go back, refers to the systematic lowering of the cost structure and the consequent unit cost reductions. And that we can observe that, over the life cycle of that particular product. And according to the experience curve concept, then per unit manufacturing costs for a product typically will decline as some of the characteristics are developed, as far as learning curve, experience curve, utilization of technology, innovation, decreasing of decreasing of quality, decreasing rework as a result of improving our quality initiatives. Using the economies of scale certainly will aid in that particular endeavor. And again, there is the experience learning curve. The strategic significance of the experience curve is that increasing the company's product and volume and its market share, again, will hopefully lower its per unit cost relative to its rivals. But we can't rest there, because as we're improving, so are our rivals as well. So these learning effects, we have to make sure that we're adopting and we're learning, we are internalizing our lessons learned so that we can improve our overall product and manufacturing process. Certainly, managers cannot become too complacent about the efficiency-based cost advantages that's being derived from the experience curves for several reasons. One of those, that neither the learning effects nor economies of scale are sustained forever, and that experience curve is likely to bottom out at some given point in time. And as a result of that, these cost advantages that we have gained through experience can become obsolete. Certainly, if you think about it from the standpoint in terms of technology and how more and more companies are using technology today, and how the technological advancement that we see, say for instance in surgeries, and how we're using robotic surgeries today. It certainly is advancing the field of medicine. And if you think about the new manufacturing processes of the future, we're using more and more robotics. And as a result of that, less hands-on or less human interaction or humans is going to be required, because we're using robotics. As another example, that as new technologies are developed, that learning curve again will shift. Again, equally important, that while we're shifting, so is the competition. So you can't just rest just because you're doing good today. Figure 4.3 from page 121 is just another graphical example of the impact of this learning curve, as we see as that as we begin to learn that we're shifting from time 1 to time 2, that our unit cost is lowering as we're gaining the economies of scale, as we're gaining the experience through those things we talked about, that hopefully it will be a natural outcome that our per unit cost will change over time as well. That should be the desire. That's what you're really driving to be doing, is to improve it over your rivals so that you can maintain your profitability. Here is another example. After the competitive advantages have been exhausted, one of the things that we could do to improve the scale economy is go through acquisition to acquire a company who has similar product offerings so that we can gain new market share. Just another example, alternate view of the other one. So central to this concept of economies of scale is that idea that lowering the cost structure through mass production of a standardized product is the best way to achieve high efficiency. One size fits all. I don't have to retool. My assembly line can only make one product. It sounds good in theory, but as a result of that theory, we have to make sure that we never ever take our eyes off what the customers want, what the customers demand, and what the customers will need. Part of this production of efficiency, as we look at developing new technology, is through this term called flexible production technology. That covers a wide range of technologies that are being designed to reduce setup times for complex equipment, increase the utilization time of the individual machines, possibly through better maintenance practices, possibly through better scheduling, improve quality, better training of the operators as we go through the entire manufacturing processes. Research has shown that the adoption of flexible production technologies may increase efficiency and lower cost relative to what can be achieved by just purely mass production of a standardized product. while at the same time enabling the company to customize its product offering to a much greater extent. And it comes back to this customization, that competitive pricing that meets the desires of our customers, because customers who have a very low switching cost may be willing to change when their needs and desires are being met. Through this mass production or this mass customization, which is a term that has been coined to describe what a companies through their flexible manufacturing process could be looking at. It is the two things that we've seen so far through this entire course. Two of the best ways to do that is through low cost, lowering your per unit, as well as lowering your per fixed cost unit. Good gracious. Lowering your per unit fixed cost as well as your per unit variable cost so that you can compete with your rivals. But equally important is offering a differentiation strategy or a different type of customization to your product that customers will come back and stay with you. And it's really about the two goals of trying to reconcile these two goals of low cost and differentiation. And you see there a few examples that were offered. Here's a figure on 4.5 on page 125 that just gives you the view of for traditional manufacturing versus flexible manufacturing. Where in the traditional view, we see that very low innovation, high unit cost, high variety related to the unit cost and the volume related to unit cost compared to a standardized manufacturing process that, again, standardized, traditional, one size fits all, not taking advantage of those things we talked about earlier, the training and expertise of the people, utilization of technology, efficient scheduling, run times of the equipment, even up to and including the downtime, scheduled maintenance time, good maintenance practices. So flexible manufacturing certainly is the wave of the future, as we're looking at a way to do all those things to lower the total unit cost. And if we can lower the total unit cost as compared to what our rivals are doing, then hopefully we can maintain. The goal should be to maintain our market share. So as part of this marketing and efficiency, part of this deals with that strategy that a company is going to adopt that has a major impact on their efficiency and cost structure. And this marketing strategy really refers to the position that a company is going to take with regard to possibly its market segmentation, its pricing, its promotion, its advertising, its product design, as well as its distribution. Some of these steps seem to be relatively obvious as we're moving down the experience curve to achieve a lower cost structure through aggressively doing these things we just discussed. All of that is truly a marketing function. Another aspect of this is on the efficiency side, and how can the relationship of customer defect rates, cost structure, and unit cost maintain our profitability? Well, we know that if we are producing poor quality products and they're not doing what we said they would do, or if the customers does not see the value from that, then it certainly has an adverse impact on our profitability. And as a result of that, we have this thing called consumer or customer defection or turn rates. And that's when a customer is looking at their switching cost and making a conscious decision, either through rationalization or just through pure emotion, that what I am paying for this product is no longer being viewed as value added for me. It's no longer meeting my need. Therefore, I am willing to change and go to a competitor. And these defection rates are determined by customer loyalty, which in turn is a function of it's a function of the company's ability to maintain its customers base. And as a result of that, there is that direct relationship between defection rates and cost. And the longer a company can keep a customer, the greater volume that a customer is going to generate in sales against their rivals, that hopefully is going to maintain their profitability. And really, uh, if you think about it from the standpoint that you really want to have customers for life, not just a one-time purchase from a customer and they never grace you with their presence again. It's really about having a customer for life. So you want to monitor your customer defection rates and do everything you possibly do as an organization through your strategy and planning to ensure that the customers stay with you. Here's an example, figure 4.6 on page 127. As you think about this relationship, the longer you maintain a customer, the more profit per customer you will get over time. So it's really about, again, maintaining a customer for life. And one economic benefit of a long-time customer loyalty, certainly equally in something we focus on a lot, is the profitability, but equally important is the free advertising that we will receive from that customer. The old advertising marketing strategy, that the personal selling, the word of mouth advertising still works well. It still works well. And that free advertising that customer can provide for you can dramatically increase the volume of business through simply referrals. And I know, like you, like me, if I'm uncertain about a company, I will seek out people who may have done business with that particular company before to get a personal referral, and that a lot of times will influence my purchasing decisions. A central component of developing the strategies to reduce these defection rates is to identify, why did the customer leave to begin with? Why did they choose to go to their competitors? But equally important, doing something with the information after you learned it. Not just learning it just to track it on a chart and say, look how bad we are. It's really about internalizing that feedback and doing something with that feedback to maintain the current customers you have, but hopefully reaching out to those that you lost and maybe getting them to come back and do business with you. So take these measures. The marketing function must have an information system that's capable of tracking the defections, but equally important, acting upon those deflections or defections as well. Materials management, just-in-time inventory. This contribution of logistics to boosting the efficiency of the company is just as dramatic, or can be just as dramatic, as the contribution from marketing and production. And we know that material management encompasses the activities necessary to get the inputs and components to a production facility, including the cost of purchasing materials all the way through the production process, through the distribution process, all the way to the customer as well. Hello?
Hey.
Hey.
I canceled that appointment, and I'm going to talk with Annie about getting him over there.
Okay, why did you cancel it?
I didn't feel comfortable going by myself with him over there.
Okay.
The therapy was trying to schedule all around him, and I was afraid he was going to be worn out. So.
Okay. Do I need to take him tomorrow?
I don't even know if he's there tomorrow, Doug. I don't know.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can call in a little while and ask.
That's fine. I mean, I don't mind taking him.
All right. I'll call him after lunch, okay?
Now, who is Annie?
Annie's the lady that drives the
Oh, well, whatever you want to do, I'm good either way.
Okay. All right. I love you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, sure. Love you too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye. So at that material management, the logistics side of that really is about from the time a product walks or raw material walks in the door until it walks out the door through that entire process until it gets to the end customer. And improving that particular process through Six Sigma or lean type quality management tools is absolutely paramount because we, as you know, anywhere you can even get a small reduction just based on the economies of scale that has the potential to reduce per unit cost is should hopefully have substantial impact on profitability. Another way in which this is being done in today's environment is through this adoption of just-in-time inventory system, which is really designed to economize on inventory holding costs by scheduling components so that they arrive just in time to enter that production process, or to have those goods to arrive just in time at a retail store when that stock is almost depleted. And if you can imagine, it's an enormous amount of capital that is tied up in um, raw materials sitting on the shelf waiting to be used, not only through storage costs, but through taxes, through insurance, things of that nature. In some cases, just-in-time inventory works extremely well, but in some cases, those hard-to-get one-of-a-kind components or heavily used, repetitive type item that you use a lot of. Just-in-time inventory may not be the ideal way to go, but in concept and in theory, um, it has some advantages. One of the one of the biggest disadvantages of a just-in-time inventory is that um, your stock buffer. If your stock buffer is not set at the right level, then you can certainly run out of that stock. But again, we know that stock is very, very expensive to store, to pay taxes on, to pay insurance on. Equally important, the cost of capital that you have involved in that, tied up, waiting to take that material and turn it into a tangible product that you can sell. Here's some of the other things that we've talked about already, I believe, on cost savings and drawbacks. Okay, so let's talk about supply chain management. And this really is about the flows of inputs and components from a supplier into the company's production process, all the way through that process to it gets to the end customer. And the whole concept of this is to minimize inventory holding and maximizing inventory turnover concepts. But it's got to be a good strategy that's going to, again, make sure the company is doing the things that it needs to do to meeting the needs and desires and the wants of its consumers. Primary roles, table 4.1 is just a summary of this information that we've kind of talked about up to this point. So let's talk about research and development strategy, and we'll come back and talk about some of these primary roles because all this kind of goes together. So the role of superior research and development is to help a company achieve a greater efficiency and lower its cost structure. And it's going to do that by two ways. One of those, the research and development, can certainly boost efficiency by designing the products that are easily to manufacture, cutting down on the number of parts that is going to be needed to make up that particular product, decreasing the required assembly time, hopefully resulting in higher employee productivity, lower levels and lower cost, and higher profitability. Also, pioneering process innovations is a second way in which a research and development function can help a company achieve a lower cost structure, process innovation that is new, that may be unique as a way to improve their efficiency. I'm over on page 129, by the way. I forgot to mention that earlier. Another one of these strategies is human resource strategy and efficiency. We know that productive employees lower the cost, thereby increasing revenues, increasing return on sales, and boosting the overall company return on its invested capital. One of the challenges associated with human resources functions is to devise ways in which each employee will increase their productivity by adding value in everything that they do each and every day. Some of the ways in which that occurs, and again, for those who are studying the Nucor organization, a classic example about linking a human resource strategy to incentives to overall company profitability. But some of the ways that companies are doing that today is certainly in their hiring strategies, the way they're training their employees, the way they may be even organizing their workforce into self-management teams, and to link pay to performance. Let's talk about each one very quickly if we could. It's important to ensure that in your hiring strategy that the company is being consistent with its own internal organization culture and strategic objectives, that it pays the due diligence and intentions that it needs to ensure it's hiring the right person to fill that seat. Employee training is another one, because we know that employees who are better trained can perform tasks even faster and more accurately, and they're likely to learn more complex tasks associated with some of the modern techniques. Again, as technology is changing, so must we keep up with that technology by offering great employee training. And training upgrades employee skill levels, bringing hopefully the company through productivity related efficiency gains through experience and knowledge of their employees. Self-management teams was another one. It's where, and that's just what it means, self-management teams is where they're coordinating their own activities. They may also have been provided the opportunity to hire, train, and reward within their own teams, maybe even making job rotations, assignments. Certainly in that type of environment, those employees got to be well trusted. They've got to be willing to set that autonomy, and that responsibility will be thrust upon them. And that empowerment in that process really of giving the lower level employees the decision-making power to do just that, to manage each other. Another one of these is also associated with pay for performance, really is linking performance that hopefully will increase employee productivity. But it's equally important that management must recognize and ensure that the policies are in place, that the correct incentives, the correct or the acceptable behaviors are being rewarded, and those that are unacceptable are also being rewarded, but rewarded in a negative sense, where there's nothing that used to probably more demotivating to an organization is for everyone to get the same pay raise. Those who were engaged, those who were giving above and beyond discretionary effort to help the organization be successful, and those who just showed up every day. That probably one of the most aggravating things that I see in organizations today, when you just give a standard pay raise to every employee, regardless of their contribution to the organization. So managers must define the type of job performance that's going to be rewarded, then go about doing just that. Over on page 131, Human Resources of Walmart, very interesting read. You could draw some conclusion that probably they're not as good as what they sound, but you can draw your own conclusions about that. But it's really about how Walmart is getting its employees to work extraordinarily for the wages that they pay. So again, Walmart's one of those classic examples that you see in a lot of these strategy and management textbooks, and it's a good case study as well. So table 4.1 was just a overall summary of this discussion that we just had. So information systems and efficiency certainly is about looking at how technology has certainly changed the workforce today. And as a result of that, through the explosive growth of the internet, how we use internet intranet, how we are using web-based programs through customers and supplier interactions, how we've been able to leverage that technology to actually reduce the number of people involved or required to manage these such interfaces, which has resulted in cost savings, because now we're able to get a lot of this information where before you had to go have someone dig it out of a book or copy it for you, or have a classic example. I know this occurred at a former company that I worked at when I first started. We had a human resources department locally that had over a dozen people, and by the time I left, because of utilization of technology, we were able to take a lot of those processes, employee manual, all those things that I used to have to pick up the phone to call. I had 24-hour-a-day access through our intranet. Therefore, that department was reduced from over a dozen down to about 2 by the time we left. But the big key there was the utilization of technology and how technology has changed, gave every employee instantaneous access to that same information. So it really was a way in which to reduce cost. Infrastructure and efficiency is the way the company goes about controlling that, how it creates value, and how it can use that to lower its overall structure cost. And I went one slide too many, and let me come back here again. Table 4.1 really is a summary of these primary roles of the functions that are needed in achieving superior efficiency, over on page 133. And just like achieving superior quality, quality can be thought about in two terms. Quality as reliability and quality as excellence. And what we do know is that superior quality provides a company with two significant advantages. One of those certainly is a strong reputation that is going to differentiate its products more so than their rivals, creating more value in the eyes of our customers and giving that company the option of charging a premium price for its products. Another one is eliminating defects or errors in the production process, which reduces waste, hopefully increases efficiency, hopefully lowers the cost structure of the company as well, and increases its profitability, over on page 134. And one of the ways they're looking at doing that, several of the ways that we're looking at doing that certainly is through the concepts of total quality management, Six Sigma. Back in the 80s and 90s, total quality management was a big buzzword, and it really was developed by the American management consultants, Edward Demings, Joseph Duran, and A.V. Frigobon. But this philosophy under total quality management was based on these 5-step chain reaction, as you see here: improving quality to reduce cost. And if you can improve quality, less rework, productivity improves. And as productivity improves, better quality leads to higher market share, because your product is viewed in the eyes of its consumers as being of high quality. And if it's of high quality, their impression of the value, typically they're willing to pay a higher price for that. As a result of that, the company is in the position to charge higher prices, which allows that company to stay in business. And if it can stay in business, then it leads to increased jobs. Equally important, these steps should be part of any type of quality management program, and it really starts at management. Management has to be on the forefront in developing the philosophy, giving the workforce the tools necessary, as well as empowering every level within the organization to improve from a quality standpoint, to eliminate defects, to improve its quality, improve the quality of its supervision. Back in the day, a supervisor may have got promoted just based on time and grade. Well, that's no longer true anymore. Not only do they have to have a business acumen, a depth and breadth of knowledge when it comes to the processes of the organization, but equally important, how we can go about improving the quality, not only from a human, but also understand the human concept of it and what motivates employees and how we can aid employees to be successful. And working with the employees and giving the employees the appropriate skills that they need to be successful. Management, again, has to create an environment in which employees are not fearful of raising their hand and saying, wait a minute, something is wrong here, as they go about reporting problems or recommending improvement. Management also has got to look at the work standards, and it's got to be defined not only as numbers and quotas, but how can we improve the quality in a defective-free type of work environment, that we're giving the skills that the employees need, that's going to support that and promote this thing of defect-free output. Training the employees as to develop those skills to keep changes. Again, we said earlier with the technological changes, we have to make sure our employees are staying abreast of those as well. And achieving better quality requires the commitment at every level within the organization. Every individual within that organization has got to recognize and see how what they do each and every day ties back to the overall welfare of the organization. TQM, Six Sigma, lean management, all those type things that a company can adopt to improve its overall quality, productivity, efficiency, thereby leading toward increased profitability for the organization. This particular table goes into some of these different roles that we just talked about. So let's look at a few of these if we could. Among those companies who successfully adopt a quality improvement methodologies, certainly they stand out. As we know, improvement in product reliability is a cross-functional process. It requires close cooperation among the various functions within the organization and those different roles that are played by the different functions as they go about implementing reliability improvements are summarized here in this table. Again, the very first bullet, leadership, management, senior management has got to agree to it. It's only going to be successful if it's easily measured. It has goals that's going to incentivize the employees, that every employee must buy into an improvement program. And these quality improvement methodologies have got to preach the need to identify the defects and to trace them to the source of what caused the defects, and then go out and make the necessary changes to eliminate those defects. Creating a metric or performance measure that can be used to measure the quality, setting the goals, the challenging quality goals, and creating the incentive that's going to be needed for it is going to be absolutely paramount. Encouraging this cooperation not only from at the senior level, but even down to the shop employees or the floor employees, every level of the organization, where a lot of your great ideas will come from. Our role, our biggest responsibility as leaders and managers of organizations is to be willing to listen to what the employees say, then be willing to act upon that. And as we talked about earlier, the interrelationships between research and development and engineering, as they're making sure we're meeting the needs of our customers while we are designing products that require less um, less production time or less parts that does the same thing as we go about ensuring that we're meeting the needs of um, our customers. So you have the infrastructure to production as well as the marketing concept. They all got to be on the same sheet of music, so to speak. Here we are, materials management, research and development, information services, as well as human resources as well. All of these has got to be working closely together to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers to improve our quality, again, improving our overall profitability. So, product is any product is is comprised of different attributes, and reliability is just one of those attributes, but they also got to be a product that's differentiated, and those differentiated may include the form, features, performance, durability, and styling of that product, as we see here in table 4.3 on page 138. And it's really about how a product is being offered, as it's seen by its customers, as it's being compared to our rivals. And as hopefully they're perceiving ours as higher quality on any of these attributes, and they're willing to stay a customer for life. But equally important, managers must look at these attributes and develop maybe some actions to ensure that we're offering the products that we say we're offering. A few of those actions may be that managers need to collect marketing intelligence, indicating which of the attributes here listed are most important to customers. Once they have that intelligence and those attributes have been identified that's important to customers, how do we go about redesigning our products within reason, and the services that we offered that's going to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers. Then we have to decide how we're going to go about promoting these attributes and how we're going to best position those attributes in the minds of our consumers, how we're going to go about tailoring the marketing so that message is promoting that consistent image in the minds of our customers, that we're advocating the needs that we're responding to, and we're meeting the needs of our customers. And we got to recognize that while we're doing this as well, our competition is doing the very same thing. So this continual improvement is absolutely paramount as you move forward in the industry in which you operate in. Okay, there's that discussion we just had about what a manager must do. And some of that, again, is going to be to ensuring that we're achieving that superior innovation, which is going to be potentially a source of our competitive advantage. And it's really about what new products, innovative type products, are we offering that's going to best satisfy the customer needs. And we do that, again, hopefully with the concept of being different in our product so that we can charge a premium price and or lowering our cost structure that is lower than our rivals. Why does some of this innovation struggle? It's really because many new products fail because the demand for innovations is uncertain, meaning that as customers, we don't at times really know what we want until we see it. Then we see it and we say, I got to have that. So in some cases, we just don't know. This is where market research can help minimize the uncertainty for that. Maybe the new products fail because the technology is not communicated, is not commercialized enough. Our differentiation is not communicated in such a way where our consumers are seeing the differentiation of our products and what it offers compared to our rivals. Another one may be positioning strategy, is where a specific set of options a company may adopt for a product that is based upon several dimensions, or these four main dimensions of price, distribution, production, and advertising, and product features. And sometimes they fail because sometimes companies just make the mistake of marketing based on a technology, which in some cases, all consumers are way past that technology. Some consumers are well behind that technology, or they don't really see the advantage of that technology. If you take the smartphone compared to a cell phone, when the first cell phones came out, what did it really do? It gave you a mode of communicating. Well, as we've gone into the smartphone technology, it's really a computer that you can put in your pocket and take it with you. So it far exceeds that. Well, for someone who really wants the cutting edge of technology, they can't get enough of the most recent edition of that brand that they use. But if you have someone who only wants, say, to be able to communicate via making a phone call, then that technology far exceeds what they want. And as a result of that, some companies don't do a very good job of positioning that strategy, or they fail to recognize their marketing on the technology, that in both cases you're meeting the consumer demand, but the demand may be a little bit different. And sometimes the products are slow to market. The slower the cycle time certainly has a impact on that as well. How do we go about reducing some of these failures? Through this cross-functional integration, as we can see that product development are driven by customer needs, meaning you got to listen to what your customers saying, then you got to respond to what they're saying to the best of your ability to tailor your products to ensure that you're going to meet their needs. And there it is, the products designed for ease of manufacture, which means that your manufacturing process is not so complicated that where you can thereby lower your per unit cost. The development cost, research and development is not out of control. The time to market, you're minimizing that time to market, and there's that close integration between the different functions within an organization that's driven by the needs of its customers. A customer can be also a primary source of new product ideas if we're willing to listen to what they're saying. One of the best ways to achieve a cross-functional integration is to develop a cross-integration functional team that's going to have a project manager who may have a great status within the organization, who has power and authority, composed of each member from each one of the functional areas. They're physically located close enough where they can develop a sense of teamwork, trust, and camaraderie, where they have a very clear set of goals and priorities, developmental milestones. They have a very clear process for communications as well as conflict resolution, and they have the developing competencies and innovations so that they can learn from each other, be given the power and autonomy to make recommendations and to look at past successes and failures and to potential new product developments. All of that is really about how we can go about reducing innovation failures while hopefully being one of the first to market. Here is table 4.4, which again is another summary of the things that managers can do through the infrastructure, production, management, marketing, R&D, information systems, human resources, as we see here, as a way to develop these processes and get these out to market. It could be through customization, where we're tailoring that unique need to that particular customer on page 145. Could be reducing our response time, which gives us a competitive advantage because we're first to the market. It could also be that we are also looking at what is it going to take to achieve what the customer needs and what are they willing to pay. One of the ways that we want to do that certainly is focusing on the customer. A company cannot be responsive to its customers unless it understands what its customers needs. It just can't do that. How do we go about doing that? Over on page 144, there's several tips that were offered, and that is demonstrating leadership within the organization. Customer focus has got to begin at the top of the organization, shaping the employees' attitudes to ensure that our employees understand what the customer needs, training them to what the customer needs, making sure they understand that relationship between marketing, manufacturing, research, development, every aspect within the organizations. Or in other words, our employees need to really grasp the concept that they're customers as well and put themselves in the customer's shoes and how they want to be treated. Another one is to know thy customer's needs. Know thy customer is key. It's one of the keys to achieving superior responsiveness to what they need. Not only knowing what they need, but knowing how they think and listening to what they say. Then go about hopefully responding to and meeting their customer needs, either through customization, hopefully through that customization, we're meeting their needs by offering good quality products. So customization, and equally important, is response time, by being the first to offer and to satisfy what the customer needs. And again, this table 4.4 kind of summarizes all that type of information. So with that, that concludes chapter 4. And thank you so much for listening.